Hello knitters and friends, welcome to the Seedling Stage Knitting Podcast. My name is Athena and I am a knitwear designer coming to you from Vancouver, Canada. And I also work here on our local yarn store called the West Coast Wools on weekends and sometimes Fridays. And this is my little space where I chat everything about knitting, crocheting, sometimes sewing as well, and yarn, and probably a little bit of Chinese culture and yarn, because that's where I'm from, that's my identity. And I also enjoy doing patterns from Japanese pattern knitting books, so some of that as well. So since my last episode, I started to try to do the unedited type of video because it was really hard for me to ignore all the grammar mistakes and the stumbling, mumbling, what's the word, that I did in my podcast, and I just edited all of the grammar mistake out, and it just got me really stressed of doing these videos. But since last episode, I just tried to relax and ignore the grammar mistakes, and I think it was okay, and I think a lot of you have enjoyed it. So I think I'll just try to stick with this style of the unedited version, so I don't speak very fast, and feel free to speed up the video. Sometimes I have to say the same thing a couple times until I'm able to express the thing, so just bear with me and hope you will enjoy my knitting contents and projects and all the interesting stuff that I'm gonna show you today. I'm very excited about this episode. I have books, yarn, projects, finished objects, so yeah. So let's get started on this episode. Feel free to grab some drink, your knitting projects with you. I assume it might be a long episode because I do have a lot to chat about and to show you. So yeah, we'll get started. First thing I'm gonna show you is my new design. So what I'm wearing now is my Vine tee. It's my new summer knitted t-shirt design, and I'll spin around. So it has a high split hem. It's optional though, because I know this high split hem won't attract everybody, and it's also added a little bit of the difficulty to it. So maybe some beginners also want to just knit in the round. So I just did a test call last Friday or Thursday, and the test call has already been closed. I've been able to recruit testers up to size 3XL, but if you are interested in testing this design for 4XL or 5XL, please do contact me, and I have a very flexible deadline for the plus sizes. And then I'm hoping to be able to release this pattern in mid-June. So I'm looking forward to all the vines growing on my test knitter's needles. So for all my patterns, I do both languages in Chinese and English. So I recruit testers from both the English, on Instagram, and on the Chinese side, so that they can test the patterns in both languages. As for the construction, this is a top-down raglan t-shirt, so it should be on the easier side of things, because I've been designing complicated color work and cables for my two previous garments, the Harbin sweater and the pine fur sweater. So for this one, I want to try something that's a little bit simpler, but also has an interesting detail. So here comes this raglan t-shirt. So mostly stockinette, except that on the raglan line, I invented this vine stitch that runs from the top of the collar and down to the hem, and yeah, and then it finishes at the very bottom up until the bottom of the hem. And below the underarm there's two new strands of vines that's growing over here. So, and that two new strands of vines forms the split hem over here, or no split hem, then they will be together. So on the back is the same thing. So I kind of like the idea that the interesting stitch patterns runs from the collar up to the bottom. I just, like the continuity, like what I said in my last episode, because I think like it's not a very common design idea. Like usually there's just some interesting stitch on the collar or some interesting stitch on the body, but this time I tried to incorporate the whole thing throughout. Yeah, so that's my design idea, and this is not a complicated stitch, and I included both the charts and the written instructions for this part, so I think this pattern would be a good introductory to reading charts for beginners, because I do think being able to read charts is a good step up for knitters to tackle more complicated, more interesting stitch patterns, and like have that geometrical vision of a knitter, like to form that in your mind. I think that's important. Like some people don't like charts, but personally I always prefer charts than written instructions. Yeah, anyway, I provided both, so I didn't do this for the other two of my designs because the stitch patterns are just too complicated, it's too big. But for this one, it's a small enough stitch pattern repeat, so that I think giving the written instruction also makes sense. And it's mostly just stockinette. And as I said in my last video, I don't like the lace to be in the front of my chest because I still want my design to be, work appropriate. So here it is, all the lace there on the side, so it's safe to wear this even to the work. And I also did like a slightly opening kind of sleeve with a double folded hem. I think it looks quite neat and elegant, and it gives you this flowy feature. So I just want this whole garment to be very flowy with the flowy vine. So here it is. And for the yarn, I used the Sandnes Lune. It's the linen, cotton, and viscose blend. It's quite soft compared to pure linen or pure cotton. I think the viscose component softens it, and I also like the little viscose adds a shine to it. It's like not a solid color with the pure grain. It's like an interesting it's an interesting, nice slightly heathered color, and it's a DK weight yarn, so I knitted on 4mm needle. I think I finished the whole thing within 3 weeks, including the designing, the ripping back, because I did the split hem a couple of different times because I was unhappy with like the location of the split hem or the shaping of it. So I had to rip back and forth a couple of times until I'm happy with my design. But I managed to finish the whole thing within 3 weeks. So I think that's good. It's a quick knit. I forgot to say, on the front of this split hem, I added a shaping so that there's some decreases, so that eventually when you're looking from the side, the split hem will be splitting instead of like just sticking together. So I think that's a nice feature. So it's a high split hem, but I think in my pattern I just give the option of high split hem or no split hem, but I think it's easy enough for knitters to be to combine these two instructions to do the split hem wherever you want it. Yeah, because I think some people just might like the split hem to be as high as where you started to do the ribbing, so that's fine. I guess that's everything I wanted to say about the pattern. I know my testing period might be a bit on the short side. I give like about five weeks. I think it's a rather quick knit, but it's just I really need to publish some patterns now that I'm working almost as full-time as a designer, but I haven't really published that many patterns, so I don't have much income. I think sometimes the whole knitting community is putting a lot of pressure on the knitwear designers. Patterns need to be graded to be size inclusive. They need to include all kinds of instructions. They need to be tech edited and test knitted. They need to be error free, and it can be very overwhelming for like very new beginner designers like me to do all of these things. And if I'm just trying to do this almost full-time, people are also complaining that patterns are getting more and more expensive. But I think with these amounts of work required, it can be very hard. So anyway, I'm gonna try this time to see if a 5-week or 6-week testing period will be enough, and so that I can still publish this pattern within the spring, summer, before it's getting too cold. Because my other pattern, the pine fur sweater, is definitely like more of a colder weather garment, and I didn't want to release it in summer, so I gave it a really long testing period, and then I'm gonna release that in early autumn, which would be, I suppose, a good timing. Yeah, so that's the vine top, vine tee, and then next I'm just gonna talk about my finished objects and work in progress. I have a finished objects, and that's beneath what I'm wearing now, beneath the vine tee. That's the basic bra designed by Naked Knit. So I think I'll just do an editing magic without like flashing you. So this is my basic bra, and I love it. I want to give this pattern a very, very high score if I could. So it looks like this. It's a basic bra. There's nothing, like no stitch pattern in it or whatever, but it's so functional, and it's a quick knit, like a rather small project, and looks really nice, and it fits me really nicely. And plus I won the game of yarn chicken. So I knitted this with some leftover China hemp yarn that I purchased from last year. I used so the white, the lighter blue, and the navy blue. I bought some balls of this China hemp yarn from China, and then I knitted the Provence top with this lighter blue, and I knitted the June top light by Petite Knit with the white and the navy blue. And then I just had some leftover that I had no idea what I could use them for, and then I saw the Naked Knit, the basic bra, and I calculated the yardage. It's like not sure if I'm gonna be able to make it, because it also depends on the size and everything. But then I finished, I only had this much left. It's like 2 grams of yarn, so I calculated I used about 220 meters of yarn for this project. So just a bit of the construction of the bra. So it's bottom up. There's a double folded single rib. That's a tongue twister, and then then you knit the two cups, and then you knit the I-cord for the straps, and then you sew it at the back, you mount it at the back, and you have the option of knitting shorter to do the regular strap, or as what I did, I knitted it a bit longer because I had that extra yarn, so I knitted it to mount it in the shape of an X. So I think it fits very nicely. I had this problem with my store-bought bras that they're either too tight, so they have the elastics here, and after a day of wearing, I just have, it just doesn't feel that well. It just feel very tight, very uptight the whole day. I don't like it. Or they're very loose and the straps just keep falling off. Or there's a lot of padding things here. It gets too hot. Or there's too little, too thin. Some of those bralettes, they're very, very thin. And it's almost nothing here when you're wearing some garments. You still want the coverage. So this is good. This has everything I dreamed about a functional bra. It has the amount of coverage that I want, and it's also knitted according to your own measurements. So basically you need to measure your own under breast circumference. I forgot the word. So you measure here, and there's a factor, and you calculate, and then you cast on that number of stitches. So it's very, very much tailored to your own measurements. So I love that part. And then you they gave you 3 different cup sizes, and then I'm actually the M. I thought I would be the S, but I am the M, so just measure everything according to the measurements, and I am the M, and then you build up the whole thing. And also the straps, you can definitely knit however long you need it, and I think by mounting it in an X shape instead of a vertical shape, it's harder for the straps to fall off, and it also looks a bit nicer, a bit more sporty. So I really love it. Naked Knit, they have a few other bra options. They have the everyday bra, which I think is almost the same thing, except that it's a smaller cup, or they do the increase or decrease at the front a bit differently, but it looks almost the same to me as this one. And they have a simple bra, the simple bra, which is again almost the same, except that at the back there's a bit more coverage. For this one, it's almost, you just start knit the whole thing in the flat immediately, but I think for the simple bra, you probably will knit in the round for a few centimeters before you separate for the front of the cups. So probably taking a bit more yarn. I think for summer this is really nice. I can just wear this maybe with a linen shirt or something. When the weather is really hot, I could probably just wear this. And even today it's getting pretty hot, so I really love this. And it's a nice scrape yarn project. So I basically finished all the white yarn I have, and then I did finish the light blue yarn I have, and then I knit the navy blue and have these 2 grams. So I guess in the future, if I have similar scrapey fingering weight yarn, that can go nicely to the skin, I'll knit more of this. I think this will be my next basic sock project. Like I usually have a sock on the go on my needle so that I can do that on the bus. But now I can make more bras. I think I need more. I need more of this. I need different colors, so to match the different clothes I have. So yeah, so that's the basic bra. Highly recommend the pattern. On the pattern, they recommend you to use a cashmere, like their own finger and weight cashmere yarn. So I guess I will try that when I have some cashmere. And it doesn't take a lot of yarn. So if you want to try cashmere, but you don't want to invest for a sweater quantity, this would also be a good project to get a feel of cashmere or any other fingering weight luxurious yarn. Okay, I'm gonna do the editing magic. So next finished object is on my feet. So I'm gonna bring up my feet. I finished my Snowbell Socks. Ta-da! Oh, it's so hard to do this. I think I showed one of the finished sock last time. Now I finished the other one. There's not much new things to say. It's just a lacy pattern socks, toe up with a German short row heel and a double folded cuff and some ruffles. It's very cute, and I would wear this now with my sandals, so that I can show off the whole sock. Pattern is from the 2202 Sandy Scar magazine. It's their first project. It should be knitted with their sisu yarn, but I knitted with the Chinese socks yarn, which is a bit cheaper. And then I'll go on to talk about my whips. So my next whip is also from the Sandy Scar 2202 book. It is the Jules Genser. It is a top-down round yoke with some lace pattern or texture on the yoke. It's knitted with a single strand of mohair, so it's very time-consuming. I think I probably cast this on January, like very early this year. And I'm here finally at the bottom ribbing part, and then I'll be knitting the sleeves. I'll show you the original design from this book. It's knitted with their tin silk mohair. So I picked a similar color from like a cheap Chinese mohair, a nylon blend mohair, but I think I probably should have invested on the silk mohair because the silk mohair looks better. This one is like a plain blue color, but the silk mohair with the silk, it's a bit shiny. It's just a bit nicer, and the tin silk is much more fluffier than this yarn. But anyway, I still love it. And also the reason that I was working so hard on knitting the bra is that I want to wear this when I finish. You definitely need some sort of bralette or bra or tank top, camisole kind of undergarments to go with this. So I finished the bra. I haven't finished this one. I think this will probably be my next bus knitting on the bus project. It's pretty mindless, just a bunch of stockinette right now. So that's the Jules Genser. And I have another whip, which is a Crocheted project, and is here. Ta-da! This is a Crocheted Slipover from the Japanese knitting quarterly magazine Keitodama. Is on the cover version of their spring issue. The original one is knitted with yellow summer yarn, but this one I'm knitting with a Chinese superwash wool variegated kind of yarn. So it's just starting to show the variegating pattern. Is a purpley yarn, lilac, very floral, and yeah, I like it. The crochet pattern is not too hard. It's just with this fingering weight yarn, it takes quite a long time. So this is the back piece, and the front piece is almost the same, and then you will crochet like a belt to tie it at the two sides. So yeah, this is also this is like my secondary bus project. So they're not growing very fast, just gradually. And then I have a new cast on since yesterday, no, or since last weekend. And can you guess what this is based on these little, is this the right side? Yes, this is the right side. So I am knitting the Kuutar top by Sari Nordland. I'll show you a picture of the pattern at the back. I think this was pretty popular for a while, or for last summer. This is actually a sample. I'm knitting with the Knitting for Olive pure silk yarn. The colorway was Queens, Quince. Is that how you pronounce it? Queens. I think it's probably some kind of tangerine, like a citrus fruit, as I've searched. So, great news. The yarn store I'm working at, White Coast Wools, we're going to carry the Knitting for Olive yarn. We're very, very excited about this. We had to like write cover letters so that we are admitted to be able to carry their yarn, and we and they accepted our application. So now we'll start with the pure silk, their silk mohair, and their merino, the fingering weight merino yarn. We'll start with these three kinds, and there's probably gonna be a sale online and in store this coming weekend. If you watch this episode in a timely manner, then you will probably be able to join the sale at the end of this weekend or the next weekend. You can, if you're interested in getting some Knitting for Olive yarn for a cheaper price, you can sign up for our newsletter at whitecoastwools.com, or just come by at the store and look at these beautiful Knitting for Olive yarn. They really have a lot of beautiful colors, beautiful dyeing, and they're all like compatible with each other, so you can strand the mohair with the merino, that sort of thing. And I am knitting a sample for the store, so I calculated that I could make this Kuutar top with 2 balls of this pure silk, so I'm gonna knit this as a sample of for the store. But hopefully I'll be able to wear it for a couple of days, or like I could probably wear it during the weekends when I work here, and then I'll leave it at the store, which is fine. And be very proud of me that I didn't pick a green. I got to pick the color of the pure silk to make this sample. Yeah, I will be able to keep the sample after they are done with the displaying, like changing to winter seasons. Then I can have this back. Be very proud of me that I didn't pick a green, because the green shade in the pure silk is almost the same as this color, the Lune I'm wearing. So I think I should probably try some different color. We also have a dark green, but the dark green is very similar to another yarn that I'm going to work with, which I'm going to show you in a moment. So I'm going to try the yellow. And speaking of this color, the Kuutar top, Sari said in the pattern that Kuutar is a Finnish word meaning the lady of the moon or the goddess of moon. So the yellow color it looks like a bright moon. So I think it's a nice pick. I also don't own any yellow color clothing, so I think it's a nice place for me to try out some new colors. And this yellow, the more I look at it, the more I feel like there's a small sprinkle of green in it. I don't know what you think. Can you see a shade of green in it? I think everything when you put it beside me for a bit, it will look a little bit green. Or at least for me, it's like that. So recently I changed my description on Instagram and said I am a knitwear designer with all shades of green. I think I've found my voice. I've found my style, my niche of designing knitting patterns is that like I have to put a little bit of green in it, or with a theme that's about green, like the pine fir, the vine. I think it fits me very well. Going back to the Kuutar top, it's a lace pattern camisole sort of thing. It does have all the lace in the front of the chest, meaning that you probably have to wear an undergarment beneath the Kuutar top, but since I'm knitting for the store, I need to choose something that's popular on Ravelry, that can attracts more customers basically. And I also do like this pattern. I do think it's very beautiful, and I had my basic bra, so it's no problem that I am to wear this top. So I'm happy with the pattern that I chose. And I learned that in the pattern, Sari said that this lace pattern is adapted from the Japanese Stitch Bible by Hitomi Shida, and I have the book. So it's this book. I have the Chinese version. There's an English version as well. There's the original Japanese version. So Hitomi Shida, she is a very famous, popular designer in Japan who did all sorts of intricate, complicated stitch patterns with lace, cabling, twisted stitch, combined wraps, all the different patterns. And I managed to find the pattern that Sari adapted the Kuutar top into. So it's over here. So it's this 59. It's this pattern. It's this 59 over here. So there are a lot of difference. In Sari's version, she did the shaping, the increase and the decrease. Oh, no decrease, the increase. And I think she probably changed some details as well. And I was just wondering if, like, what's the law in, adapting patterns from something like the Japanese Stitch Bible, like how much a difference you need to make, then you can call that your original pattern. I think Sari did a very good job in adapting the patterns into her pattern. She provided both the written instruction and the charts for the Kuutar pattern, but like for the Japanese, there's only charts. Because there's only charts in Japan. They're very concise in the written part. But I think with Sari's work, it makes the beautiful pattern from Hitomi Shida more accessible to more people. I think it's really good, and not everybody had the ability to adapt this into a garment. And I think Sari, she did the camisole top, she did like a pullover, probably a cardigan and a beret hat. A lot of different versions, in a different gauge and yarn in this pattern. And I like the way that she adapted the patterns. It's not like an all-over stitch pattern design. So it's still very wearable. I think I can show you some of the garments by Hitomi Shida herself. So this is Hitomi Shida's garment design. Like this, it's usually like very feminine, very like all over, very complicated, like that stitch pattern. And personally, I don't like that style. I don't like the full-on stitch pattern. It's very difficult to knit, and for me, I don't think it's very wearable. And I think the way that Sari adapted design so that it's almost half or over half of them are stuck in net, and half of them is the beautiful stitch pattern. I think it's more modern, a bit less intricate. It's probably still a personal aesthetic thing, because there's a lot of people who just love the original Hitomi Shida pattern, especially in China. I think in the English knitting world, the Hitomi Shida's work was not translated except for these 2 stitch pattern books, but she had volumes and volumes of garment books. There's probably like 5 or 6 different just garment books with these beautiful Hitomi Shida patterns in China, and she had a lot of fans in China who just like knit all these hardcore lace, twisted stitch, combined stitch pattern garments. Yeah, so that's some thoughts on the lace pattern by Hitomi Shida and the Kuutar top. As for me, I've only knitted these few rows. I cast on Saturday, and today is Tuesday, so it's pretty recent. I cast on Sunday, it's pretty recent, and it's such a difficult lace pattern. In the first few rows, you're knitting in the flat, and you had to do lace rows on both sides, on the wrong side and on the right side. And I had to put these stitch markers for each pattern repeat, otherwise I just like mess up the whole thing. I had to restart a couple of times for the first couple of rows. I think the first like 6 to 10 rows are the most difficult, because you need to do the lace on the wrong side, and afterwards I think you only do the lace on the right side, which I'm already at there, so I think it will be a bit easier. But it's still a very much focused knit. You almost had to bring up the spirit of solving difficult math problems, equations. You had to have that mind of focus when you knit something like this, because otherwise, if you slip your attention to other things just for a little moment, you will miss a yarn over, or you put the yarn over on the wrong place, or you did the SSK instead of the knit two together, or something like that. So it's very much a focused knit for me. And you have to work this pattern for both the front and the back side of this camisole pattern, so it'll take a while. I've knitted the gauge swatch. I sent the gauge swatch to the yarn shop already, so that they can display that before I finish this thing. And my gauge is 24 stitches and 32 rows on 10 centimeter square on 3.25 millimeter needles on stockinette. So it's a bit tighter than what Sari suggested. She used 3.5mm needles and get the same stitch gauge and 30 roll gauge, but I think my yarn is thinner than her yarn as well. So anyway, I'm happy that I almost met gauge except the roll gauge, which I think would be less important. It looks really complicated and it looks nice, looks interesting, but I think I'll need to work the full thing to be able to appreciate the full beauty of this Kuutar pattern. Let's go on to new acquisitions. I have some very exciting new acquisitions to show you. So I got some vintage Chinese knitting books. There's the story behind that. I started making knitting podcasts in Chinese language as well, and my undergrad supervisor, the professor, he had retired, and but like we are around each other's, like Facebooked each other, except that Facebook doesn't exist in China, so we WeChatted. We have the each other in the WeChat circle, so like he knows what I'm doing, that kind of thing. And he found that I started doing this knitting stuff, and he found these 3 vintage Chinese knitting books, and he said he could donate them to me. There I have them. So these are the vintage knitting books from China from the 1980s. So I think they are from 1986 or 1982, 1983. These 2 are like new trendy knitted garment 100. So there's 100 different patterns, garment patterns in this book. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine there's 100 different sweater or like cardigans, different sweater patterns in it, in such a small book? And I'll show you the inside of it. So this is the second of the series. This is the first of the series, and these are from Shanghai technology publishing house, that kind of thing. And then the third book is Shanghai knitting pattern 500. So there's 500 different knitting patterns in this book. So I can show you a few. So these are the original designs by Chinese designers from the 1980s, and they look so nice. Some of them are even very modern. Like, look at these cute kids from the 1980s. They must be, I don't know, 40 years old or almost 50 years old now. It's hard to imagine. These beautiful RM pattern sweaters. Look at these. Some of them are color prints, and some of them are like these grayscale prints. These are all the sweater design, but this book is all about stitch patterns. So there's it says the solid design. So these are, I don't know, this looks quite complicated. I think it's more, I don't know what these symbols are called. It's slip stitch. I think these are slip stitch, and those complicated slip stitches by a couple, like among a couple of rows, and there are symbols that I have never seen before. And also there are some knit and purl textures, cable textures, that sort of thing, and wraps. So I'll just like flip through it, kind of. And then, oh yeah, here is all about lace. From here, there are 141 lace patterns. they look really nice. I can totally imagine you design some sweater with these patterns. I could probably do that. I should probably do that, given how I just saw Sari adapted the Hitomi Shira pattern into the Kuutar top. I guess I could totally adapt some of those patterns. Oh, look at this. Look at this flower lace pattern. Very, very intricate. And then they have some color works, but it's not those fairy style color work. It's like a color work with textures. So there are like slip stitch or wraps, or some of the stitch patterns. I don't even know the English name of them. And you put different colors into them. I think these are very, very interesting. I need to learn about these. Oh, and look at these. Look at these. I can totally imagine this being made into like Norwegian style sweater, or like colorwork mitten. I think I could probably do a colorwork mitten with this pattern. Is this a cat or a panda? That's so cute. That's so cute. And then some flower patterns. Yeah, so it's this book. A lot of resources to dig from. And then here's the 100 Sweaters Volume 1. And I'll just flip through. It's interesting that it's a Chinese book, but they have the like Caucasian white people models. It's very common in China that you have white people as your model. It probably like makes your garment more refined. It's a Chinese thing. Like even in Japan, if you look at, for example, Tokai Erika's pattern books, some of the models there are not are like white people. It's interesting. Some of them are really like 80s, but some of them are really modern. I can totally imagine some of the, like this one, I can totally imagine this got very popular on Ravelry. Look at this, and look at these. Yeah, this is a nice Gansey style sweater. And there's one thing that perplexed me, is that there's 100, but in the pattern it only goes to 93. You see, 93, that's the 93rd design, and then it's finished. It goes on to like how to do knit and purl stitches, that sort of thing. And there's just no patterns for the from the 94th to the 100th design. And if you look at the page number, it's continuous. It's just those designs just disappeared. I guess there's probably like an auxiliary or supplement book that gives you the design of the last 7 designs. It's really weird. The same thing happens for the book 2 as well. I don't understand, but it's interesting. But it does include all the 93 patterns at the back. Can you imagine, like in Lane magazine, how many patterns are there? Like for the 52 weeks of socks, there's only 52 patterns, and it's only sock pattern. And here there's 93 sweater patterns in such a small book, and it's very cheap. It's 6.50 Chinese yuan, which would be like a little bit over $1 Canadian for 93 for 93 patterns. Can you imagine that? But it's also from the 80s, so like nowadays for a Chinese pattern book it would be like 20 to 30 yuan, which would be like $4 to $6 Canadian dollars. It's still very cheap. The books are very cheap in China. Yes. And then book number 2. Let's flip through it. I think the book number 2 is even better than book 1. Look at this patchwork, colorwork sweater. I think it's very, very interesting. Oh, and number 5, the lace pattern at the back. How stylish is that? How stylish! And they also have these timeless designs, like with the iron sweaters, that kind of thing. And this number 11, so stylish. It's like those boho style or whatever. And this one, number 20, is some, I don't know, is this Estonian knitting with these like embroidery like texture? I don't really know. I haven't looked into the pattern. It looks really, really interesting. And look at this guy. This guy is so handsome. This guy looks like the Jimmy Kimmel, the guy who plays the Zero in Stranger Things. He looks like that handsome young guy. And some more from this book. I also like the way they style, like the two guy friends. It's very, very cute. And a bit more. Oh, look at this color work. I thought it was corn, but I think my friend says it's some kind of flower, like a hyacinth. And a bit more. I don't know if I'll ever be knitting anything from the designs, but there's sure a lot of inspirations and knitting skills that I can learn from these 3 valuable vintage knitting books. I think they probably stopped this series. I don't know if there's a 3, like a volume 3 or volume 4 of this book. I've seen some of my Chinese viewers who have these 2 books as well, or have these 3 books as well, but I don't think anyone had told me they have the volume 3, so they probably had to stop it. Like, there aren't many original Chinese designs nowadays. But luckily, there is one Chinese knitting magazine that just started last winter, or I think they only had their volume 1, or their volume 2 is about to be published. It started by a Chinese yarn brand, Huiguixian, which I purchased quite a lot of yarn from. And yeah, so I think it's a good thing that we Chinese people are having some original designs and local magazines as well. The Chinese magazine style is mostly like the Japanese ones with, I think it's like similar like with the schematics and charts and very minimal written instruction. But it's a good starting point that there's this community growing in China as well, and I'm happy to report that to you. So these are this, and along with these books, I also have some Chinese yarn. So I'm a bit more popular in the Chinese social media. So as a Chinese knitting podcaster, I started to receive Chinese yarns. I'm happy to say that. So I first started to collaborate with Lotus yarns. This is their brand. They ship overseas as well. They have an AliExpress store and an Etsy store, and they have some. I don't know how affordable their yarn is, but I think their yarn will be like cheaper than the general Western yarn brands, like Sandnes or Rowan, that kind of fancy brands. But they also have some good quality yarn, and plant-based yarn, and they sent me some yarn samples and also some yarn for me to try. So I asked for their pure linen yarn. They have a pure linen yarn, and no surprise, I asked for their green color. They mailed me a sweater quantity of this linen 100 pure linen yarn, and they come in this, and then I wind them into cakes. I have already knitted a swatch. So these are 2 strands because this yarn is super thin. I think I'd say this is light fingering, and I hold 2 strands together, and I knitted with the 3.5mm needle on the bottom, and then the 3.25mm needle on the top. This is the first time that I work with pure linen yarn, and when you knit with linen yarn, it feels so stiff, and the fabric is like very uneven. But when you wash and block it, let it relax, it's very drapey, and it's not scratchy at all, and it feels very cool on the skin. They're very breathable, so I think I enjoy this linen yarn. My gauge is 20 on 3.5mm needle. It's 22 stitches per 10 centimeters, and on 3.25mm needles it's 23 stitches and 32 rows. So I think if you are to substitute this yarn with the Lune from Sydney Scar, you can do 3.5mm needle on 2 strands, and this will give you 21 stitches. And for me, the Lune gauge I got was 20 stitches, so there's like a 1 stitch difference, which I think would be fine. It's not as tight compared to linen. It will be a little bit holey, so it will look like this, and you can compare that with the linen that I'm wearing now. So it will be an okay substitution if you want to try some linen yarn. And I have some discount code from Lotus yarn. I'll put that. It's not a discount code, it's a link that can get you some. It's either 5% off or $5 off, something like that. So if you're interested in getting some Chinese yarn, so you could use that link, and I'll just show you some of the yarns they sent me. I am going to design another top also in the Vine series with this yarn, with the linen yarn. I'm going to do a sleeveless top. So now I have the sleeves version, and I have drawn a few schematic, no, just doodle. I just doodled. So I started with the tank top version, and then a camisole version, and eventually I think I settled with is this a vest, a tank top, or what do you call it, like with the V-neck and 2 straps without sleeve? It's a sleeveless top. Okay, it's a sleeveless top. I'm not good with the categorizing of these things, and I'm gonna have the vine pattern that runs here into the middle of the V-neck and down to the bottom, and also another strand of vine runs from the side and to the split hem, and I'll also do a split hem as this one I'm doing here. So and I think I'll just do it the same for the front and the back. I think this idea is interesting and kind of neat. So I've done my swatch with the vine pattern at the side. I think it looks nice and flat. And I'll start with the designing. So that's the linen yarn. They also mailed me this brushed merino yarn. This is 90% extra fine merino and 10% nylon. I think this is a temporary line of yarn they have. They have a comparable product, which is their brushed cashmere yarn. It's more luxurious, it's pure cashmere. Oh wait, sorry. This one is 82% extra fine merino and 18% cashmere. And these are all their colors. And this is probably a similar, like lower quality less expensive version of this sample card I have here. So I got these, and I wanted to knit the Christmas sweater from a Sandy Scar magazine that I don't have yet, but I ordered it, and it will arrive like in 2 months. So I'll show you then. It will be for the winter. It's so fluffy. I don't know if you can see from the camera, but it's very fluffy. It's very soft. It's like you're striking a little sheep, or like a sheep toy. So it's very nice. And so the Lotus yarn, they sent us a bunch of they sent me a bunch of their samples, and I brought these to Wacko's Wools, the store I'm working at, and see if my owner Margot is interested in ordering any of those. And among all of these, this is of the most interest. I'll show you all of these samples, and you will. This is our favorites, and you can let me know which one is your favorite. So the linen yarn, this one. This is this sample. This is their card sample. This is their pure linen. Has a lot of colors. Very thin, but you can probably double strand it. And they have a sports weight version of this yarn, which is their linen 8, but have a more limited range of colors. I guess if you double strand the linen 100, it will be the same as the linen 8, so probably this is fine. They have this autumn wind, which is 90% cotton and 10% cashmere in sports to DK weight. Quite soft, rainbow colors. And then here is the cashmere DK. This is their cashmere yarn from the Mongolian cashmere goat. I think their cashmere might be cheaper than the general cashmere, and these are very good quality, and their colors are quite nice as well. And in the same component, they have a variegated hand dye version of this. This is the hand paint pure cashmere DK, also the DK weight cashmere, but it's like a variegated. I think this is very interesting as well. It's like beautiful hand dyed yarn. And then there's the Cathay Aran. So it's an Aran weight, 50% silk and 50% Tibetan yak. So it's silk and yak, so it's like a shiny but soft yarn. And then there's the brushed cashmere. Brushed cashmere, it's so fluffy. It's so fluffy. I think maybe at some point I could get a skein of this from them, and then I'll do a basic bra. All my head is filled with basic bras now. Okay, that's all of their yarn sample. And what else did I got? I also got some fabric because I want to learn to sew this year, and in my plan for 2023 video I mentioned I'm gonna start with sewing some skirt, and I ordered some fabric from China because it's much cheaper. It's like 2 to 3 Canadian dollars per meter, something like that. Very good quality but cheap. So this is my fabric number 1. This is the green and blue cotton, and what do you call it? Grid? Pleat? I don't know what's the word for this kind of print. And I was going to make the 3-tier skirt here from this sewing book from Japan, Chinese translation as usual. And also this fabric, it's a bamboo cotton blend, I believe, with these floral, like little flower prints, and it's a little bit green. I think it goes very well with this t-shirt I'm wearing. And this will be my first sewing project, I think. I'm going to sew the skirt from this book. It's just a simple like rectangle gathered and then a bow. I think I'll be able to tackle it, hopefully, from this book, Japanese sewing book as well. And I have pre-washed it, and when I have some time, I'm gonna work on this. I'm super excited. I got a third sewing book, also Chinese translation of a Japanese sewing book, Kana Standard. You can find these books in Etsy as well, from the store that I recommended before. The Pomodoro 24 in Etsy. She has all the Japanese knitting, crocheting, and sewing books. So you can probably match these covers if you're interested. And this is also, I think, including some nice and basic like skirts, pants. Like I want to make this pants, and styling dresses. I think this is a classic, nice, good-looking dresses. More dresses, and some blouse, and also some shirts, and even a coat. And they include the paper, or what you call it, the paper sample. I don't know the English word, but like you can cut your fabric according to these papers, then make them into the garments. So these are the things. I'm excited, but I don't know when I'll have time. I have many things on my needles. I need to design. I want to learn how to sew. I'm very busy, and I'm happy. And there is it. And what else? So I think that's all I want to chat about for this time. And thank you for staying with me. I hope you enjoyed my content. And if you would like to support me and support the show, please like, subscribe if you haven't, leave me some comments, and recommend my show to your knitter friends. And I also have a Ko-fi page, ko-fi.com/seedlingstitch. If you want to support me financially, you can just buy me a coffee for one time, or join me to be a member and donate monthly. So I will be making these podcasts also probably in a monthly manner. And also I'm intending to do some more Japanese knitting related content. I want to make a video about Japanese designers, you know, the Japanese designers, not those who are who publish English patterns on Ravelry as well, like those who only publish patterns in Japanese. There are a few very good designers that's worth mentioning. So at some point I will make that video when I have the time. I'm also thinking of making some video podcasts at West Coast Wools. We have a beautiful store. I hope you could all see it. We have a beautiful, beautiful arrangement, and we will be finding some space for the new Knitting for Olive yarn, and it's gonna be more beautiful, it's gonna be more colorful. And when that's ready, I'm hoping that I could do an episode there, or hopefully interview the shop owner Margot as well. I'll go ask her if she likes to appear on my podcast, and or even just make all the podcasts at the store in the future. So we'll see how it goes. And at the end of my video, I usually play a piece of piano, and this time I'm gonna play the Clair de Lune by Debussy, Claude Debussy, the French composer, one of my favorite. I'm only going to play the beginning part of it because it's a very difficult piece, and I don't have the time to practice piano, so you just settle with the skill level that I have on my piano. So it's not perfect, but I think it's okay. And it also goes with my Kuutar top, which is related with the goddess of moon. So I'll just keep practicing this piece until I finish my Kuutar top, and then I will wear my Kuutar top and play this piece eventually. My antique piano is from like 100 years ago. The sound quality is not very good. Sometimes it makes like a squeaking sound. I apologize for that, but otherwise I hope you enjoy my piano. I hope you enjoyed my content and enjoy your knitting as well. Have fun, take care of yourself, have a nice day. See you next time. Bye.